All right, let's get right into it. Those handful of years right before you retire, they might just be the most important of your entire financial life. This is that critical transition period, and honestly, small decisions here can have massive consequences down the road. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through a smart, strategic path to building a really resilient retirement plan, especially for us Canadians.
Now, this is what's so fascinating. For so many people, the biggest risk isn't that they didn't save enough money. No, the real danger is in the sequence of their decisions. Pulling money from the wrong accounts at the wrong time, mistiming their pensions, or just completely underestimating taxes. It's really a game of strategy, not just a game of accumulation. So here's our game plan. We're going to break this whole thing down into 5 key stages. First, really understanding this transition window. Then, building up your financial defenses. After that, we'll get into planning the human side of retirement, assembling all your income sources, and finally, what I think is the most important part, the tax-smart withdrawal strategy. Okay, so first things first, we really need to reframe what retirement actually means. It's not just about stopping work, right? It's a fundamental tectonic shift in how your money works. Just think about it this way. While you're working, if you have a bad month or make a not-so-great investment, it's okay, because your next paycheck can help fix it. But in retirement, there is no next paycheck to correct a mistake. You are now the CEO of your own income system, and that means any misstep, any little error, can have a much, much longer-lasting impact. And here's the crucial takeaway. This isn't just about trying to save more. Every single extra dollar you manage to save in these final years is doing double duty. First, it directly beefs up your portfolio. But second, and this is maybe even more important, it buys you flexibility. It buys you options for when you're going to need them the most. And that idea of building a strong foundation, well, that leads us right into our second stage, fortifying your financial defenses. Because look, before you can even think about generating income for the rest of your life, you have to build a really stable base to launch from. This really boils down to 3 key actions. First up, get rid of that high-interest debt. We're talking credit cards, lines of credit. That kind of debt just forces you to pull more from your investments, which creates a ton of tax pressure. Second, you've got to build a liquidity buffer. Think of it as your flexibility fund, sitting in a high-interest savings account. This lets you handle any surprises without having to sell your investments at the worst possible time. And third, identify those big, predictable expenses, like a new roof or a new car, before you retire so they don't pop up as emergencies later on. All right, with our defenses in place, now we can turn to the human element. This part gets overlooked all the time, but let's be real. Your financial plan is completely useless if it's not actually connected to the life you want to live. Income planning almost never works without lifestyle planning. What's your daily routine going to look like? What gives you purpose? You also need a realistic budget, one that maybe even has different stages. The active go-go years might cost a bit more than the quieter, slow-go years down the road. But here's the best part. How do you know if it'll work? You test drive it. Try living on your retirement budget for a full year while you're still working. It's the best way to turn theory into cold, hard reality. Okay, time to play offense. We've built the foundation, we know our lifestyle goals, so how do we actually generate the cash to pay for it all? This is where we figure out what we call the gap. So, your income engine has a few different parts. You've got to understand your workplace pension. Is it a defined benefit, or DB plan, where you get a set amount for life? Or is it a defined contribution, or DC plan, which is more like your own personal investment account? They behave totally differently. Then, you need to be strategic about your Canada pension plan and old age security. Deciding to take them early versus delaying them is a massive decision with huge financial implications. You have to layer all of these income sources together to see what's actually left. So let's just run through a quick example. Imagine after doing all that lifestyle planning, you figure out you need about $6,500 a month to live the life you've envisioned. That's your target. That's the goal. Okay, next step, we subtract all of your guaranteed income. So after making all those strategic timing decisions about your workplace pension, your CPP, and your OAS, let's say they all combine to provide a reliable $4,200 every month. And there it is, the gap. The amount that your personal investment portfolio has to generate is $2,300 every single month, after taxes and after inflation. This number right here, this is your mission. This is the job your savings now have to do. This brings us to our final and frankly
most important section. You can do everything else perfectly, but if you get the withdrawal strategy wrong, the whole plan can just quietly fall apart. This is all about tax efficiency. So here is the absolute crucial point. The order you withdraw money from your accounts, we're talking your RRSP, your TFSA, your non-registered accounts, it directly impacts how long your money will last. It is not just about how much you have, it is all about how efficiently you draw it down. And this slide really paints the picture, doesn't it? A haphazard, unplanned approach, that leads to way higher lifetime taxes. It can trigger things like the OAS clawback. That's where the government literally starts taking back some of your pension because your taxable income gets too high. But a strategic plan that minimizes taxes, it preserves the amazing tax-free growth in your TFSA for later, and it can even balance income between you and your spouse to keep you both in a lower tax bracket. This is where you can gain or lose years of income. And finally, you have to build in some resilience. You've got to stress test your plan. What happens if the market takes a dive or inflation spikes? You should also simplify your accounts, make them easier to manage so you reduce the chance of making a mistake. And last but not least, review your health coverage options before you leave your job because healthcare is a core and often expensive part of any real retirement plan. So when you put it all together, retirement planning is so much more than just saving money, isn't it? It's about strategy, it's about sequence, and it's all about efficiency. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. Which of these critical steps do you believe most people miss? Is it getting control of their debt? Getting the timing of CPP and OAS right? Or is it building that all-important, tax-efficient withdrawal plan?